So you have a very long relationship with Pantera. How exactly did your relationship with Pantera begin?
How did that all start with me? Well, I was actually one of a couple of independent engineers that worked right here in the Texas area, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I have to say that we, meaning the two of us, Sterling Winfield and myself, we were kind of handpicked by the owner of the facility in which we were going to be doing the recordings and the mixing and so on and so forth with Pantera. Little did we know that, at first we thought that it was going to be, the guys are going to come in, they're going to do a little bit of this and that, and then they're going to be gone. But that turned into like a 7-month journey, with the guys, and it was quite the journey.
Now, in terms of your working credits with the band, you're credited on Far Beyond Driven, but if I'm not mistaken, in reality, you've actually had somewhat of a working relationship with Pantera since Cowboys from Hell.
At the end of the day, that's usually what I hear here. Which one did you work? Which record did you work on? Well, I worked on Far Beyond Driven, and you didn't work on Cowboys from Hell. Well, no, but I will say this. The guys in the band, when Sterling and I were teamed up with them, at first, and it wasn't the band who was saying this, at first, I'll say it like this. The powers that be weren't real sure that we were going to be needed. But the band came back to the table and said, we want these two guys to be there. Because they're going to be running around doing things that, Terry wasn't going to be able to handle, being the single producer, engineer, and of course, Vinnie Paul's an engineer as well too, but it's really hard to be all of those things. Point being is that, we were relieved for about, a day. Sterling and I were relieved for about a day. It's like, well, you guys can participate if you want to, but we don't really need you here all that much. And once again, this was kind of like maybe, I don't know, maybe it was some label stuff, or maybe, hey, just didn't want to, pay for guys being in the studio. But it was the band who came back and said, no, we want both of these guys to be here because they will be, performing certain duties that there's just not going to be time for Terry to take care of or whatever.
So in terms of Cowboys from Hell, there are a lot of interesting sound effects on that record. Were all the effects recorded in studio, or were some of them added afterwards?
Usually when these effects that you're talking about were to take place was after Terry would go back to the hotel. And, he'd already been there for 14 hours for the day anyway. And it's like, Tim, I need for you to, we've got some guitar stuff that we need to take care of here. You guys just handle that. I'll see you tomorrow. And so that's what I meant about, sometimes this stuff was kind of nerve wracking from the viewpoint of like, oh crap, if I miss this punch, or if I'm on the wrong track, then I've just destroyed something that we ain't going to get back. Yeah. So we had to take a lot of time, energy, and effort to make that stuff right. And of course, Terry coming in the next morning, you wanted it to be right. You wanted him not to have to, if we got to do this again. So, some interesting behind the scenes kind of stuff.
Now, in terms of Dimebag Darrell, what was it like working with him in the studio?
Amazing. Every one of those guys, simply amazing. Not to kind of point in a certain direction. Sterling and I both. I had several years under my belt prior to meeting up with Sterling, so on and so forth. But we had no idea. Again, as a kind of if you want to think of it as a hired gun, when we were both approached to do this, we were kind of thinking that maybe the guys were going to come in, maybe record some overdubs. Mm-hmm. Didn't know really. And then that just turned into this long lasting friendship and relationship. It was like the guys didn't see a need to pick up and bail from their hometown, so to speak. And so, we wanted to, Sterling and I both, we wanted to give them everything that was available to them here in the state of Texas to make that happen. And then once that was all said and done, they loved Sterling so much that they went, "Hey man, let's go on tour." And he took him up on it and was with them for close to 10 years, I think. Don't get me wrong on this. I want to say that he bass teched for Rex for close to 10 years.
Wow, that's a long time. Was he ever with Devil Kill Hill? Am I getting it wrong?
Are you talking about Hell Yeah?
No, not Hell Yeah. Rex's band after. I forgot.
Oh, no.
Devil something, yeah.
No. So, without bringing up too many painful memories and stuff of that nature, Sterling decided to get off the road right before Dime was killed. Mm-hmm. And I told Sterling that probably saved his life. Just the fact that he was not on tour, the fact that he had made that decision. And I asked him, I said, "Well, man, what made you decide to get off the road?" And he said, "Man, road life is not easy. And if you can imagine what it's like being on the road with these guys for this long, it will wear on you. It will definitely wear on you. But it's like I told him that very night that I received that phone call from Sterling. I told him, I said, "Man, I'm thankful to God above that you decided not to take that tour." And he goes, well, why? And I said, well, I just think that it potentially would have saved your life, because I know that you would have been right there in the middle of all of that. Now, kind of moving on to the Rex thing, I think that when Sterling left, all of that is about the time that things were kind of getting unsettled amongst the members and so on and so forth. And I got to tell you, I consciously, kind of wanted to separate myself from all of that, because I hate seeing stuff take place in bands and stuff of that nature, especially when they've been kicking ass so long and so hard. And that's the other thing that people don't realize, is that Pantera, at least here in the state of Texas, they recognize them as being one of the best metal bands on the planet. But they don't know how long it took them to get there. Mm-hmm. There's so much history, decades of time that these guys had been together prior to, getting the recognition that they got.
Tim, I just really want to say thank you for sharing that information with me. I do appreciate it.
Sure. Well, and here's the thing, Daniel, is this stuff is, it truly is. It's behind the scenes stuff. We don't talk a whole lot about, session work that took place here unless we get directly, asked about things. Mm-hmm. So this is my opportunity to maybe kind of help lend a little voice for the band Pantera. Again, I can't say enough about that period of time that I got to be with them. The truth is that project actually kind of let me forward in my career, and it certainly allowed me to, if I could be blunt about it, it gave me enough finances to purchase my first home. So, I couldn't be any happier with the way things turned out. And then to turn around and find out that after it's released, that it went number one, within minutes after it was released. So I have nothing but super fond memories. Yes, we had all kinds of work ethics amongst us, but there was not a day that didn't go by that we didn't have a blast doing it. I can tell you that much.
Do you have any funny stories from your time recording with them?
Well, pretty much every day was, it was something brand new, something that was going on. I would say, funny stories, every day was fun, and every day was funny. In particular, I couldn't necessarily pick out one particular thing that just, would totally stick with me.
Yeah.
But when you're hanging out with guys of that magnitude and of that fortitude, shall we say, that such artists such as those guys, the sky's the limit. You can wind up, in places that you would have never thought that you would have ever gotten to go on your own. But getting to be with those guys, it was like the way that we worked was kind of like the Three Musketeers. It's all for one for all. And so anytime that we would be in the studio, if we took a break, we all took a break together. We all went to wherever that might be that the break was going to take place at, and then come back and go back to work.
So for you personally, what's the most rewarding part of your job?
The most rewarding, for me, is seeing smiles on people's faces when it's right. Honest to goodness. It's not about the money. I think we both know it ain't about the money.
Yep.
It's actually seeing a project come to fruition, and it's good. Because we see a lot of bad stuff, you see a lot of bad stuff. But when you see something that has got, and this is what, honestly, it's what I tell my students. Everything that I do, I try to do with intent. I try to do with purpose. It needs to have a purpose moving forward. Otherwise, we're just pissing in the wind. And I don't see anything can really come positive out of just sitting there pissing in the wind. So, I think all the experiences is what I'm leading up to. I don't know that I would be able to handle doing sound design, the creative process of all that. That's the part that I enjoy the most now. It's not, honest to goodness, it's not really, kind of telling on myself here a little bit. It's not sitting in that engineer's chair. And it's not, doing a take for the 100th time. That doesn't really float my boat anymore. But seeing the creative process and watching the wheels turn and then watching that come to fruition definitely is something I love. I love getting to do that. I think maybe, Daniel, not to blow smoke up your skirt or anything, but I think one of the things that really triggered us getting the opportunity to do this today was the fact that you're doing documentary style filming. And that's a huge passion of mine these days. So like nowadays, I was telling you, I teach, I instruct for surround sound and stuff of that nature. But one of my big passions now is sound design, creating, atmospheres and different things for film and stuff of that nature. I would say probably all the big moments that you can possibly imagine were probably usually going to be big name folk that always hit the doorstep at Dallas Sound Lab. And those varied. I mean, it was anybody from Elton John to, oh gosh, I don't know, Kirk Franklin.
Oh, that's cool.
Quite the extremes.
So I was speaking with Steve Albini a little while back, and he said that one of the unique things Kurt Cobain did during the In Utero sessions is that he recorded the vocals for all of his songs in a row, as opposed to working on one song at a time. Was Pantera's approach to recording music similar or different?
It was different. It was very different. And honestly, I think a lot of it had to do with just how each song was structured. Hey, we got to have this before we can have that over there to see how it's going to work. Because again, you got to realize that when Phil would come into the studio, he was there for a limited time. He would be flying in from New Orleans or wherever he might be at the time. So limited time with that. So honestly, we kind of got to a point to where, and Sterling and I learned to do this when we were working with Merciful Fate and King Diamond, is we would put a poster board up on the wall and we put all the songs up there, and it was kind of like a grid. And it's like for, when this part was completed right there, then you get a little sticker that goes on there. And so we would do that until it got filled out. So both Pantera and with with Merciful Fate, King Diamond stuff, that's how we would checkerboard it, so to speak. So I think a part of that was to just keep it from being monotonous to where it's like, I've heard these stories, of wonderful bands before, but it's like, what are y'all working on today? Oh, we're working on hi-hat today.
Huh.
No. Nobody that I know of or nobody that I've worked with has ever done it that way. It has a tendency to kind of get sterile and stuff of that nature. But, now I have done metal records that we went in and got the sound, what it was going to be up front. And that would take a considerable amount of time to do that. And then literally for the next 5-6 months, microphones never moved. We would go in and check it first thing every day, make for sure nothing had changed. So again, there's those different techniques, but to answer your question about Pantera, it would be, a couple of hours you might be working on guitar parts. Next couple of hours you might be doing a bass part. The next hour or two you might be doing a drum overdub or something of that nature. Hey, I need to go put that part in there. That needs to go there. So, even when the guys with Pantera were there at the Sound Lab, it literally was for 7 months, holidays and everything included. We would just shut the studio down and then just leave everything where it was and come back and
That's cool.
Check it. So that I think that's why I enjoyed getting to do it so much, getting to participate so much with Pantera. And it was never a chore when somebody would ask you to go do something. Hey, could you go take care of this for me? Yeah, man, let's handle it. Let's get it done. As far as the creative side of things, I know that the guys talked through every note that was ever played with any of that. And with Rex, it wasn't like Rex was there day in, day out every day. Rex was there when he was needed to put his bass lines down. But again, it was so that we could move forward with the other tasks that needed to be taking place while there. The same thing would hold true with Phil too. I mean, Phil wasn't going to be hanging out at the studio waiting to go do vocals, right?
Yeah.
So, whenever the part, or whenever the song was near completion and ready to have those other parts put on, whether it was bass or vocals, the guys would come in and just do their parts. But then what made it super cool, was the fact that we would hang out together after the part was done.
Yeah. So
again, it was like a collective group of guys, right, wrong, or indifferent. We were having fun.
Yeah.
And that's what made that such a special 7 months.
When it comes to Cowboys from Hell, that opening riff when Dimebag's guitar sounds like it's moving in and out, would you happen to know how they got that effect?
The only thing that I could figure that it could be is one rhythm against a completely different rhythm. It wouldn't surprise me, because I've had people ask me too, hey, this solo here, it sounds like it's more than one guitar, is it? And it's like, well, yeah, absolutely it is. Oh, you mean that Dimebag was able to come in and double that up verbatim? And it's like, yeah, I mean, it was not a lengthy process either. Once he had the solo that he wanted to do or the part that he wanted to do, it was a matter of minutes, not hours. It wasn't a matter of days. It was a matter of, okay, here's what we're going to do. Yep, let's double it up and off we go.
That is
so
cool.
That was really pretty cool too, to get to watch him do that.
That is so cool. Now, going back to Far Beyond Driven, that guitar solo in 5 minutes alone, in my opinion, has such a cool reverby sound to it. How were you guys able to get that echo effect going?
Well, I'm gonna just mention a name, and I'll leave it at that. Terry Date, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Mastermind behind not 90%, not 95%, but 100%. The ideas were talked through, and I know exactly what you're talking about. We had not really a looper per se, but we had a tape loop that we would interject every once in a while. But here's one of the things that I can definitely tell you. Going back to the master 2-inch tapes, even today, if we were to do that, that album was so mastermind and so well put together. And you also have to remember, this was in the days of 2-inch tape. You had limited tracks that you could work with. Mm-hmm. And so that was so masterfully put together. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. And then we would just go do it. And, I got to tell you, there were some nervous moments, with doing, like backwards types stuff. When I say backwards type stuff, maybe some guitar masking of certain sorts. You have to listen really carefully for all that stuff. But that stuff goes down on 2-inch tape where you've got limited tracks. And in most cases, you're going to have stuff around that area that you need to take the tape, flip it over, make for sure that you're on the right track, and then, get that effect recorded. But to answer your question, I'm going to leave it at the simple name of Terry Date. Dime had his go-to effects that he used for his guitars. And those effects weren't like, you never had like a foot pedal board full of effects. There were just a few, but that's all he needed. That's all he ever needed. It's kind of a roundabout way of answering your question.
Hey, no,
but it basically was a tape loop.
That's cool. No, honestly, like for me, I love these little details. So like that was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So just this is more of a subjective question, I guess. There's this big debate amongst Pantera fans whether or not Metal Magic or Cowboys from Hell is really their first record. In your opinion,
right.
Which one's the first record?
Oh, Cowboys from Hell. Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, there's so much behind all of that.
So, of course, one of the trademark characteristics of Pantera is the intensity of Phil Anselmo's vocals. Considering how intense his vocals are and how much he screams, did he ever blow out his voice during the recording sessions for Far Beyond Driven?
No. So, again, as you probably are very well aware, audio can be very magical.
Yeah.
And a part of magic is sleight of hand, if you will. Mm-hmm. And in this case here, not to give away secrets or anything of that nature, but I'll say it like this: Phil was never stressed on his vocals ever. As a matter of fact, Phil never went out into the studio proper to do vocals. All the vocals were done right there in the control room. So that having been said, being in a control room, you're going to have speakers in the control room. So that means he also never wore headphones while doing any of this stuff. So that means, you got speakers on in the control room. And, at last I remember, we used a Shure SM58 for his vocals, every one of them. And so it was a technique that Phil used vocally that gets that aggressiveness, along with I can't shy Terry Date on knowing how to compress vocals and how to get that energy out of there without having to stress those vocals so much. Now, I don't want to take away from Phil either, because one of the things that I've learned doing metal music is that these vocals, there's a technique to all of that stuff, and it ain't for everybody. Mm-hmm. So, I have to give him, a good, probably 100% of the credit on knowing how to go about doing that without blowing his vocals out. It's really, really hard on those vocal cords. And, I don't know. Here's what I do know is when vocals were being done, Phil only requested that it be he and Terry in the control room. So Sterling and I never got access to, the actual tracking of the vocals. But I mean, this is a big place, and there's a hallway outside the control room. And if it's like really loud and he's having to scream or something of that nature, we would hear that. I mean, doors and all, you would hear that. And I can tell you that we never heard screaming or anything coming out of the control room. So that tells me that it was a technique that he was using, along with Terry knowing how to ramp up the preamp and then, contain it.
Cool. Wow. Okay.
So it's definitely a technique.
That is very cool. That is arguably the coolest thing you've said to me. That is, I had no idea. So you don't have to actually like scream like a crazy person to get that sound.
Mm-mm.
Really? Wow. Okay.
No.
That's cool. Mental note, because I've been wanting to record something myself, and I've been scared to blow my vocals out, so I'm glad you told me that. That's cool. So when it comes to Far Beyond Driven, you guys were set to record in Nashville, but then you switched over to Texas. What exactly prompted that move?
These guys, when Far Beyond Driven was brought back to Texas, so it originally started in Nashville, and I kind of asked about that. Back in '93, Nashville wasn't quite as versatile as they are now. Probably a little more in the country, in the country vein of being there in that town. So Pantera probably wasn't fitting the mold, shall we say, for Nashville. But their dad, so Vinnie Paul and Daryl's dad, has a studio in Nashville. So that's where I think it originally, Far Beyond Driven originally started. And not to be long-winded about it, but that's why Sterling and I kind of felt like when the band came back to Texas that we were just going to be doing a few overdubs and they would be moving on. So we didn't realize that when they brought it back to Texas, like, no, we're here. we're not going anywhere. And I asked about Nashville, and I think it was probably Vinnie Paul who said it to me. He goes, yeah, we didn't really fit the mold for Nashville. They didn't really know what to do with us. So yeah, we decided to bring it on home, and our homes are here, our houses are here. And so it just kind of makes better sense that we're here. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's kind of the way it worked out. And so when they came back to Texas, if you can imagine, which I'm sure you can, I think everyone here, at least in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they were elated at the fact that the band was back in town. Mm-hmm. And so they were, honestly, they were getting bombarded quite a lot. Hey, what's next? What are you guys doing? What are you up to? Things of that nature. And so I think as far as the band is concerned, they were really focused on what their world was at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. When you listen to a record like Far Beyond Driven, it is such a heavy record. But then there's a song on that record like Planet Caravan, which is a beautiful song that's not heavy at all. Why did Pantera decide to put a song like Planet Caravan on a record as heavy as Far Beyond Driven?
I think that it was to let people know that there is a if you will, kind of a softer side to it. In other words, it's not just hardcore all the time. These guys can be extremely melodic. I mean, that's to be, you can just listen and hear the melodies throughout things. But it was I hate to say it as a softer side, but, it being a song of such huge greatness to begin with, this would allow them to perform this their way. And, speaking on a personal note, she'll kill me for saying this, but my wife is not a real big rock fan or a big metal fan per se. Mm-hmm. But that was the one song that just, when she heard that, she goes, this is worth the price of admission right here. Yeah. Just this one song. So, maybe in a roundabout way, there was some genius back behind that album of, we're going to take this and tuck it in along with the other stuff that's there, to lure in maybe some of those folks that might not be, listening to us on a daily basis or on a regular basis.
Yeah, I agree. I think even if you listen to the original Planet Caravan, it's different, but they both have something to contribute. Like, it's not like a ripoff. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like a Pantera song, which I think is a really cool part.
Yes. And here in the state of Texas, especially in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, from the very first note that's ever played, when it comes on the radio, immediately who it is. Yeah. And so, yeah, very identifiable. But again, I think that when all of this was done, in the studio itself, it wasn't like a high energy day or a high energy week or something of that nature. It was like whenever the mood struck, we're going to go add some more stuff to this, and so on and so forth. So quite honestly, that's kind of how the record went. It wasn't like so regimented that it became boresome or anything of that nature. There was never ever a dull moment.
One of the funnier stories with that record is the cover art. What exactly happened there? Because I know that it was something else, and then they switched it, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I actually got to see. I think that wound up being okay in Europe.
Really?
We I also seem to think about the time, and I probably shouldn't say this, but about the time that record came out, we had someone in office whose wife was really opposed to, lyric content and all this other stuff. Well, I'm assuming that we both know what that original artwork looked like.
Yeah.
And so it was, for lack of better wording, I'll just say it was kind of banned here in the States. But it was picked up in Europe, and of course, if anybody is curious about that, they can go take a look and see what that looks like. But honestly, I got to tell you, I kind of like the version that they've got.
Yeah,
that's
cool,
pretty intense when you think about a skull and a drill bit going through it.
Yeah. I actually think that version, it's a cooler cover than the original one. It's just I've always been like, oh, that was an interesting original choice.
I don't think it shocked anybody when we first saw it. It's like, oh, yeah, that sounds like something that these guys might want to put out there, Yeah, we also had record company, folk that would drop in every once in a while and get the occasional reins pulled back just a little bit. Hey, we can't do that. Or whatever, but never really seemed to slow the guys down at all.
Being from Texas, like the Abbott brothers and Rex Brown, did that add an extra layer to your relationship with them, so to speak? And also, you've worked with musicians from every genre, so what was it like working with a metal band as intense as Pantera?
I didn't really feel like I was a metal engineer until I got to participate with Pantera. It's like, oh my gosh. But you also have to remember, I'm so much older than these guys are. And I watched these guys grow up when they were 14, 15 years old playing at, Six Flags over Texas in front of 1,000, 1,500 screaming kids. So I literally have gotten to watch these guys grow from, hairband with spandex pants. Yeah. Teenagers growing into the men that they were and are. And they just, as far as the Abbott brothers are concerned, they're just good Texas boys. Good Texas boys. And Rex Brown too. Rex himself, when we first met, apparently he had done a little bit of some homework, and he asked me, he goes, so do you know a certain person? And he asked me if I knew him. And I said, well, yeah, he's a really good friend of mine. He goes, man, I love that guy. I just love that guy. If you see him, tell him I said, hey. And, you know what? I get to do that. I get to do that on occasion. I get to see the same guy that he was talking about. But again, these guys, it was a joyous time. I don't know any other way to say it other than we just simply had fun. It was never 1,000% out of control. Notice I said 1,000% out of control. It was never 1,000% out of control. It was always contained, and we somehow managed to always get what needed to get done for that day. It always got done. But I never truly felt like I earned my metal wings until I got to be with those guys and get to literally see a master engineer, producer of Terry Date, who, quite honestly, he was the mother hen of everybody. He was kind of the den mother, if you will, of everybody, including myself and Sterling. And it's like, look, guys, y'all need to be responsible. You can't be drinking and driving, can't be doing things that are illegal. Mm-hmm. And he got real serious with us at one point, and that was that, look, if anything happens to any one of you guys, this game is over, and you need to realize that. And so I think that was probably one of the biggest defining moments for me, was to watch a producer who is, for lack of better wording, he's in control, but it's still like wrangling cats when you're talking about a band like Pantera. Mm-hmm. But that was a defining moment for me when he goes, you need to realize that if anyone messes up and something happens, then that affects everybody. And so, we all try to listen to that word of advice. And I also, I confided in Terry quite a bit as well. Sometimes we would go to certain places and I couldn't find Terry. And I got next to him at one point and I go, man, every time we go somewhere and I look around, I can't find you. Where are you? And he goes, I'm in a corner. And I suggest you get in one too. I suggest you find one and get in it too. Okay. But those are probably my two biggest moments. And he Terry told me, he goes, look, you're a married man. That Dime carries that video camera around with him everywhere. You don't want to wind up somewhere that you don't need to be. And I said, I understand. I completely understand. So from then on, I always got in a corner.
That's funny. As someone who's not from Texas, when I think of Texas guitar players, for me, the first two people I think of are Dimebag Darrell and Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm not sure if you have any history with Stevie Ray Vaughan, but in your opinion, who is bigger in Texas?
Oh, boy, that was a very, very hard question to answer. So, yes, I have had some time with Stevie Ray when he was here. Also came out of Dallas Sound Lab. The couple of records came out of there. Boy, that's a tough one because everybody loves Stevie Ray, but everybody loves Dime too. Mm-hmm. That is a real good question. Gosh, man, I'm going to chicken out and I'm going to say 50-50.
Hey, fair enough.
Not everybody loves blues. Not everybody loves metal. But I think between the two, there's no denying that, those are two guitar greats that, gosh, I'm just heartbroken over the fact that both of them are gone.
Yeah, it's crazy. But even if you like some of the more melodic Pantera stuff, you can hear elements of blues in there. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely think there's an influence for sure. Now, of course, one of the distinguishing elements between Dimebag Darrell and Stevie Ray Vaughan is that Dimebag was a much heavier guitar player, and that Dimebag loved to play in drop tuning. If you look at a record like The Great Southern Trendkill, for instance, there's drop tuning everywhere. I know you didn't work on that particular record, but would you happen to know why Pantera went in that musical direction for The Great Southern Trendkill?
Great question. You know what? I think it might have just been that the overall vibe that drop tuning did for them made it even heavier for them. I don't think it was a, hey, we're going to follow suit with what everybody else is doing kind of thing. I think it was, this is where we're at, and this is how we're going to do it. Sterling would probably be a real good guy for me to ask that question to, what inspired the drop tuning for all of that. You also have to remember, Daniel, that there was a lot of transpiring that was going on with all this stuff, and so maybe a lot of that could have had to do. We need to break out of this particular mold that we're in right now, go explore some other territory.
Is there any one memory in particular from your time with Pantera that's special for you?
I do. It's not the whole band, and this is going to sound crazy, but my one special memory was I had a 35 millimeter film camera with me, black and white film in the camera, and we were on a break. Dimebag was sitting at the producer's desk in the control room, Studio A, Dallas Sound Lab, and he had picks, and they were sitting on the producer's desk, and he picked them up, and I go, Darrell, this would be so cool if you would take those picks and throw them up in the air and let me see if I can take a picture of this. And he did, and he threw them up, and I snapped the photo, got the film back, and it's an amazing picture. the picks are suspended in the air, and he is just watching the picks. And Daniel, to this day, I took that picture and I put it away, and I can't find it. And I even asked Sterling if I should, like post it at some point. And he goes, dude, I don't know. If that's your one really good memory of Dimebag, you might just hold off. And now I can't find it.
Dude, you got to find that pick.
And, we had that record took place through Halloween. So that was a favorite time for everybody. And we went through Christmas, Thanksgiving, all that stuff. Christmas time was also quite fun because everybody gave everyone gifts, and they were all bullshit gifts. Like, you could just, oh, what is this? Oh, it's a plastic ring that came from the Dollar General store. Yeah, man. Saw that, thought of you, boom, here you go. So, yeah, great memories like that. Just kind of, we're not in the record mode, but we're here, and let's have some fun while we're here, kind of stuff.
Yeah. Who was the funniest of the four?
Oh, without question, Dime.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. That guy, I'm telling you, he was, if I could maybe even present a character, let's see. I would say whoever the character was, Dimebag was that times 10. Always full of energy, always full of just, come on, man, let's go do this. Let's get this done. And, the guy, any of those guys, seriously, any of those guys would give you the shirt off their back. They literally would do it. And, when I think about the names that everyone gave everybody, I was assigned, since my name is Tim, I was assigned the name Timmy Tooth. And I don't know if you know about black tooths and stuff like that, but black tooths, I was in charge of black tooths when they were there. And so I was assigned the name Timmy Tooth. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know who Timmy Tooth was. And so Don told me, he goes, well, in the real world, Timmy Tooth is actually a character that was designed to get kids to brush their teeth. It's this character. It kind of looks like a Gumby, kind of a Gumby character, but he's a tooth, and he carries around a toothbrush. So that's officially your name. But in our world, you're Timmy Tooth because you handle the black tooths. You pour them, you take care of them. And it's like, okay, there we go. The beer that Don always drank was Coors Light.
Coors Light, okay.
Coors Light, nothing but.
I have a potentially dangerous question for you. Who is the biggest drinker in Pantera? Like, who could really put it down the best? Everyone says it's Dime, but is that really Dime, or is it anybody else? Really, eh?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I don't know how he did that. I will say that he got me hooked on drinking Coors Light like nobody's tomorrow. That was just a staple in my everyday thing. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it was probably Dime.
That's funny. Have you ever met Zach Wilde by any chance?
I have not.
Because I know they were drinking buddies. I just thought maybe they. Yeah, because I know that they're drinking buddies. So I just thought maybe Zach might be able to give him a run for his money, drinking wise.
Possibly. I mean, without getting too graphic or anything, but I mean, I told my wife, that you've become a professional drinker when you can be walking down the hallway, need to throw up and keep walking. Yeah, that actually kind of happened. So, I will say that we kept the bar stocked on a regular basis, and that was also kind of a part of Sterling's and our daily duties as well, was making for sure that we were stocked and taken care of. And a lot of people would say, "Oh my gosh, that's a whole bunch of alcohol." Well, but you got to remember that you're feeding, like more than a couple of people when doing that. You've got, 7, 8 people who are walking around that studio for 10 or 12 hours. So to say that they overdid it, nah, I think that's in the eye of the beholder. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Well, it also depends on the person,
I certainly can't point any fingers. That's for sure.
Yeah. It also comes down to the person. Like if a person can throw it down, they can throw it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I never was really one of those kind of guys, but I will say I did learn how to drink when I was with those guys. Yeah, I definitely learned how to do that.
That's funny. Yeah, no, my whole thing is drink if you want, just don't drink and drive. You know what I mean? But that's a separate thing.
And again, going back to Terry Day, he's like, guys, do what you're going to do, but be at home or be here, be at the studio. Don't get out and do stuff.
Yeah.
It will end it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So in terms of their personalities, what was similar and what was different between Vinnie Paul and Dimebag?
Wow. Both very artistic, both very heavily artistic. Gosh. Yeah. I would say Vinnie was more the businessman than Dime. Vinnie was always checking numbers, always, making for sure things were on point. So even in like business dealings, let's say maybe purchasing or exchanging a piece of gear, Vinnie Paul was always at the helm of all of that. Kind of the, if you will, kind of the engineer. They called him Riggs because he could always rig. If it wasn't working very well, he could always rig it to where it would work long enough to to get what we needed from it, stuff like that. But brothers, very, very similar in ways, but very different in others. Yeah. I would say Vinnie was the businessman type more than Dime.
So Tim, being from Canada, I grew up playing hockey, and hockey is the big sport up here, as everybody knows. In 1999, when Dallas won the Stanley Cup, there was somewhat of a controversial story involving Pantera and the Stanley Cup. Would you happen to know the exact details of what happened?
I haven't been told the whole story, but we'll just say that there was probably a get-together at one of their houses, and I would say it probably made the rounds through that whole party. The pings and dings and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I had never seen the Stanley Cup in person, and was kind of, asking the question about, well, where did all these markings come from? How to get all scuffed up and stuff like that. The answer that I always got, well, though, it gets passed around enough, it's going to get pings and dings in it. So I don't know, Daniel. I don't really have a good answer for you on that one. Man. I've been protected for my own good, I'm sure, on that one.
Hey, no worries, man. No worries. What was I going to ask you? I heard that, if this is true or not, let me know. If not, it's okay. I heard that they threw it into a swimming pool or something. Is that true, or am I hearing things wrong?
I hear it's allegedly true. That's what I hear.
All right, man. We'll move on from that one. Now, you yourself have not only worked in metal, but also various other genres, including pop music. And in my opinion, I do think that there is some good contemporary pop music out there, but overall, I'm just not a fan. What are your thoughts on modern day pop music?
I mean, from my perspective, so I'm in a teaching environment, so I see all the new stuff, that people are thinking are great, and it's like, oh man, I must be really. I'm turning into my dad, I'm turning into.
Oh, well, your dad's
I'm
right.
Turning into the old man that doesn't. That's just noise over there. But the truth is that, stuff's not being made today like it used to be.
And I think one of the problems, personally, in my opinion, is because of the internet, like there is this double-edged sword of it's great because you can get your stuff out there, but now it's like, oh, I can get famous if I just do this that everyone else is doing, right? So
exactly.
People aren't taking the risk. Like I was talking to a pop producer a few days ago, and he's worked with some pretty big pop names, and he was saying, in pop music, because I said to him, like, I don't usually interview pop people, but I'm trying to kind of understand that word a little bit. Mm-hmm. He said, it's a bit different than rock, Daniel, because with rock, it's about the band, and then the producer, they have kind of like a friendly relationship. But with pop music, it's the artist, and then there's this whole team around the artist, and they create everything for them, and then the artist just has to basically look good and sing decently. And
Yes.
I'm like, but then how is that? How is that being an artist?
So, like, not to get me started on the whole thing. So I did pop music literally for 7 years. Now check this out. It is a team of people who build the tracks. And then you've got your singers who come in and they've got to look beautiful, and they've got to, be able to maybe kind of carry a tune, maybe. Mm-hmm. But if they can't, don't worry about that. We'll fix that later, kind of thing. And I think that's the one thing that has really not driven me away from it, but certainly has turned me into that. My dad, it's like, I don't remember music being quite like that, and I think that's the other part about rock is rock, once again, like you said, it's about the band and a relationship, right? Yeah. With the band. Maybe it's as an overall thing, or maybe it's individually. But I've certainly learned that, with things like, pop groups and stuff, in and out, they come and go. You can't establish a relationship, and usually it's kind of fake anyway. My point is that as I listen to, maybe, I don't know, maybe it could be somebody like Foreigner or something like that. It's like, good Lord, man, nobody's doing this anymore. Nobody's doing it quite like that.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe for more, because there is a lot more to come. All the videos on my channel are original. I'm the one filming, editing, and conducting all the interviews. So if you guys like what you see and you want to support, the best way to do so is honestly just to subscribe. Thanks for watching.